Hello, I'm Peter Ndora. Very good morning to you and welcome to Media Monitor on SABC News Channel, coming to you live from Auckland Park, Johannesburg. And in the program this morning, we take a look at the fallout following suggestions that 40 journalists were assigned to smear the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela during the apartheid era. Now, we try to get a better understanding behind the recent SABC radio lineup changes also, following mixed public reactions. And we discuss the ongoing revelations from the Cambridge Analytica data harvest scandal. Now, the annual Gandhi Walk takes place today. President Cyril Ramaphosa and civil rights activist Jessie Jackson are expected to attend. Our reporter Gillian Pillay is there somewhere or thereabouts, and she's quite a fit and active person herself. We're going to try and catch up with her in and amongst all of that, but these are some of the images of this live walk. And as you know, our president is a fit man, and he loves to walk, and he's making fitness trendy, and hopefully he'll help people like me lose this. So that's what's happening, and we'll be chatting to Gillian Pillay a little bit later on that. But let's take a quick look at what some of their Right, now, this Sunday is leading, the Sunday Times, can you please put that in there, is leading with a story about the EFF, and it's in talks with the ANC about a possible alliance. Now, the first sign of a possible warming up of relations between the two parties were evident at Winnie Madikizela Mandela's funeral yesterday, where there was a notable chemistry between the rival leaders. The City Press is running with a story about how the ANC had to fight for space on the program of Winnie Madikizela Mandela's funeral, which became a platform to shame the party for turning its back on her. The Sunday Independent is leading with a story about how, as the world gathered to pay their last respects to Winnie Madikizela Mandela yesterday, leaders of various local parties in the country tried to outsmart each other, paying tributes to the icon in what seemed to be a jockeying for her legacy. And the Sunday Tribune is also running with the story about how various leaders of political parties wanted to gain some relevance and mileage out of the funeral of Winnie Madikizela Mandela. And the Weekend Argus, well, this is their front page. They're leading with how Cape Town International Airport should be renamed after Winnie Madikizela Mandela. This is EFF leader Julius Malema's call, of course. Right, now let's take a look at what's happening in some papers across the continent. In Swaziland, the Sunday Observer there is leading with a story about a cabinet systematic abuse of the king's name. So that's what's happening there. That's the Sunday Observer. We go to Zimbabwe now, where the Sunday Mail is running a story there. It says, no monkey business. Treasury there concerned about some issues in Zimbabwe. They're saying that urgent proper work needs to receive 2 billion, which is part of a package extended to Zimbabwe by China. And also in Zimbabwe, the Sunday News, the Commonwealth has invited Zimbabwe's head of state to join the head of state summit in London, and that means it's again an indicator of the warming relationship between Zimbabwe and the international community. Moving to Nigeria, the Daily Trust there, it's all about the 2019 polls. APC, PDP and others face campaign funding hurdles. Where have we heard that story before? And in Egypt, the Daily News there is running with this story about the US, UK, France airstrikes, and Russia warning of escalations if that continues. Okay, so We continue now with local issues here at home. SANEF, the National Editors Forum, warned on Friday against responding to unsubstantiated allegations and called on anyone with evidence of this to come forward. This after late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela accused some respected journalists in a documentary broadcast earlier in the week of working with the apartheid security establishment. Well, Kate Skinner joins us now to expand on this discussion. Kate, thank you very much indeed. So SANEF is concerned with this story because of the way that it's been handled. Tell us what you're worried about in particular.
Well, I mean, I think that it's very important to say that obviously during apartheid there were huge, propaganda campaigns, misinformation campaigns, incredible amounts of kind of lies, accusations of people being spies, counter spies, all that kind of thing. I think what we've been saying that we're very worried about is that, all of this has come up again. And the thing is that people are basically spreading this information without any particular concrete evidence. So particular journalists are being named, but, nobody's coming up with any, specific evidence about those particular journalists. And I think what is worrying about that is that it actually puts those journalists at risk.
Right.
I mean, if you looked at some of the kind of Twitter wars going down, I mean, these journalists were getting an incredible amount of kind of hate, mail almost trolling that was happening. And that is actually very damaging for those particular journalists who haven't had a right of reply, and also actually for the whole media environment and the media as a whole.
So do you think, I think two journalists were named, and Huffington Post this week sort of posted an apology saying, we're sorry we didn't give the right of reply. And that's a concern as well, isn't it? That
it is.
We haven't heard the voices of those people that were named, but on the other side of that as well, there's maybe 38 others. There's a witch hunt probably that's going on right now as I speak.
Yes, absolutely. So I mean, I do think it was irresponsible. I mean, they should not have put that clip up, particularly at a moment like this. I mean, people are very unhappy. They have felt that Mama Winnie Mandela was not treated well, and if she says various things about particular journalists, obviously people are going to be like, that's terrible, and they're going to react with a lot of emotion. So it was irresponsible to put that up there. Absolutely.
Are you not just defending your own, as it were?
Well, you could definitely put that question to us. I mean, my sense is that it is about the media, because I think, so those two particular journalists were mentioned, but obviously, as you say, in the documentary they talk about 40 journalists. My sense is that what you need to do, it's very important, I think, for our democracy that the media is seen as credible. It's very important for the media to embrace the fact that obviously there were huge problems. And so we need to acknowledge that. But I think that what we need to do now is, if there is concrete evidence, bring it. Bring it.
Vic McPherson, I suppose, is the one that could clear this up. Would it be good for him to name these people, or should this have been dealt with at the TRC?
Well, look, ideally it should have been dealt with at the TRC, let's be clear. I think that also what all of these discussions have done is make us reassess the TRC. I don't think we did have enough truth. I don't think enough came out. And I think that certain people, including, Mama Winnie, was not properly treated at the TRC. So ideally it should have happened then. The problem is that it didn't. So just on that point, which is a very interesting one about, McPherson actually now coming forward, do we trust McPherson? Do we trust him? He's part of that old apartheid establishment. And it's interesting, a lot of the discussions have been about the fact that, all over again, the old apartheid security establishment is wreaking havoc, creating divisions. Do we want to give them that power?
How do we deal with this issue, Kate?
So I think what we need to do is basically if people have got this evidence, please come forward. Please come forward and put that concrete evidence on the table. But what is irresponsible is to spread a whole lot of information where there's no evidence backing it up.
I've watched that documentary. Do you think that Mama Winnie perhaps was misinterpreted, because all she said was there were some journalists that wrote things against me. I don't think that she actually said, I know for certain that they were part of Stratcom's operation, and we sort of 2 + 2 became 22.
A very, very good point, because, I mean, she said they operated in a way that assisted Stratcom, that did the work of Stratcom. So, and I mean, the thing is, it's not to say that there weren't a whole lot of journalists that did work for Stratcom directly, but the fact is that she wasn't actually saying that, and you're quite right on that one. She's saying that, you know, the disinformation that was going on at that time then was used by certain journalists, not that they were necessarily directly working for it, or directly working for Stratcom. So that is what it is, such a murky, ugly, difficult period, and that's why it's so difficult to deal with it now.
All right, so, you know, when we talk about the media, you and I, we talk about electronic media and print media by and large, but social media really has kind of captured all of this, and they have an opinion, and I wonder how much of that is overriding even this conversation that we're having. And how do we manage it? So we can be sensible if we want to be, but at the end of the day, social media have decided, and those names that were named, they're guilty. How do we change that? How do we fix that?
You see, that's the problem with social media, as you say. I mean, it's kind of like the very dark side of human nature. Often things are kind of much more harsh and difficult and ugly in terms of the way that sometimes social media picks up on those things. I think the only thing that you can do is to put out a whole lot of statements which are around calling for, you know, if there's concrete evidence, bring it. You know, these are very respected journalists. They did work, you know, for the Weekly Mail, which was a very respected anti-apartheid newspaper. And also ask the questions, can we actually trust, you know, what these, you know, old apartheid operatives are saying? Right. So I think we need to just, you know, change the narrative through a lot of you know, people with a large Twitter following, with large, you know, social media followings, to actually say, well, you know, have you considered these questions? And I think that's how you turn the tide.
Okay, I mean, this is, I've got a feeling this will carry on for a little while longer, particularly the week ahead. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue to look at our papers and also what's been happening on social media. But stay with us for that.
We give you a front row seat to all the local and international entertainment news on Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
Welcome back. You're watching Media Monitor, and we're shifting gears a little bit now. Let's take a look at what stories are trending. In fact, not on social media. We're going to do that in a short while. What we want to do is take a look at what's happening in the newspapers, and Kate Skinner stays with us. And these headlines, and I suppose there's no one who's not talking about Winnie Mandela, but with slightly different takes. What's your assessment of what you see? So Sunday Times in particular starts with Mama Winnie's dying wish.
Well, I mean, I find it really interesting because I do think that there's a different take that you're getting. So, and I would say that the Sunday Times actually stands out as one which is talking about unity, and pretty much all the other papers are talking about disunity and about tension and rifts. So, for instance, if you're looking at City Press, I mean, they're talking about the fact that the ANC was being excluded from the funeral and was taking a bit of a pounding because the family felt so unhappy about the way she had been treated by, you know, the ANC, which was basically her home, you know, her party. So that's interesting. And then also what's interesting is, of course, the role of the EFF here in the Sunday Independent, where we're talking about Juju stokes the fires and him being incredibly critical of the way that the ANC treated Mama Winnie. So that's why I find the fact that the Sunday Times then talks about the fact that there's a coming together of the EFF and the ANC as quite interesting and rather different from what is coming out from the rest of the papers. Because also here, Zenani's tears for Mama. I mean, just a sense of the fact that she was really badly treated, you know, and she, you know, I think that documentary, the Winnie documentary, was so powerful in terms of saying.
The timing of it kind of really. So it was interesting. Yesterday we heard many speeches, and I suppose, you know, when people start to think about which ones were the most memorable, which ones were the most standout, Julius Malema, he's always gonna kind of, but I suppose he stood out. I mean, Twitter followed him, and everybody kind of followed that. Zenani, I think, also spoke about, as you were saying, how her mum was treated. But I thought the president was also quite presidential, really, because he'd just been sort of had this bombardment against the ANC and the party, and he had to find a way to manage those sentiments and started speaking about unity and healing wounds and so on and so forth. So it was interesting to see that mix and how Cyril Ramaphosa handled that. How did you observe it?
Well, I mean, I found it very interesting because I do think that you're right. I mean, he was in a very difficult position given the fact that the ANC was taking such a lot of criticism from within the party, but also, as you're saying, from without. And I think what was powerful about what he said was that we admit to the fact that we didn't treat her as we should have, and yet moving on, we need to look at her legacy, see how important it was, make amends, and then move towards greater unity. So I think, I mean, it was an almost impossible balancing act, and I think he did a pretty good job of actually pulling people back together. So I agree with you. In terms of the standout speeches, I would say, you know, the ones which you've mentioned, including the president's, were really good.
So, you know, editors have to sit on that Saturday and say, how do we deal with this story? Everybody watched from beginning to end. Do you think that if we looked at the papers today and we didn't see anything that happened yesterday, that they fairly reflect what happened yesterday? Because I'm kind of missing some of the emotion, to be honest with you. I'm missing some of the tears, some of the... I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing the fighting or the drama and the unity, but I don't know if we told the story particularly completely.
That's interesting. I mean, I mean, possibly you're right that some of the kind of pain is missing. The kind of sense of just unbelievably hard, difficult past, which I think is coming back to all of us now. Like, sure, like it really was unbelievably difficult and much more complex than maybe some of the narratives have been just sort of post-apartheid. But I think what I find interesting is if I look at the papers collectively, and this is what you hope, is that people are going to read all the papers, and generally they don't. But if you look at them collectively, I think they do reflect the kind of big narratives of some of the divisions, some of the sentiment, of the family and their pain around their mother dying and kind of reassessing her history. Yes. So,
again, I hate to keep referring to social media, but I do think that it's so powerful now. This week we saw one documentary which really, really was powerful. And I just wonder, had there been no social media and we just had to rely on the papers, would the Winnie Mandela narrative have changed as dramatically as it did in the past 10 days?
No. I think you're absolutely right. I think we see how unbelievably powerful social media is. I think it would have been a bit gentler, but maybe some of the important issues of reassessing her role in the struggle might not have come through quite so clearly. And so in that way, social media was good because it was so strong about the fact that she had been on the front lines and battled the apartheid state and had not been fairly treated. So I think in that way, social media made us really sit up and take notice in a way that maybe a kind of gentler response, if we hadn't had social media, might not have.
So the other thing, and I'm going to refer to social media again because Julius Malema talked about these people, they're here, Mama, give us a signal. And almost immediately, as people do, they go on the witch hunt, and before the end of the day, lists of people's names were coming up. And again, this is another phenomena that we're seeing more and more now, that people are getting named. What happens this week now that we have a list of those women that resigned, that Julius Malema mentioned? It can't be a normal week or business as usual. No, it can't. It can't. And I mean, it's one of these like impossible situations. People are named. I mean, the only way forward, I think, is that people can respond. So that we get the context, we get the not just both sides. I think people often say balance actually takes out a lot of the complexity, but that you get multiple views on this, and from that you get the context. The problem with Twitter is that it moves so quickly and often so harshly. But what the hope would be that some of the papers, the online, etc., gives us that greater context that we can reassess the TRC, that dreadful late 80s period, and maybe it's going to be particularly awful at the moment, but later on, when we've got a little bit of time for things to calm down a bit, we will have a better understanding of that late 80s period, and also a more nuanced perspective of the TRC and how it handled our past, because I think that's also coming under a lot of pressure. So what do the newspapers and the media in general do this week? Do they carry on with the Winnie Mandela story, or have we laid it to rest both physically and proverbially? No, I mean, I think the Winnie Mandela story will still be a very, very big story. But maybe what will happen this week, and what I'm hoping will happen this week, is some sense of maybe looking at possibilities for unity, possibilities for taking her legacy forward in meaningful kind of democracy deepening ways, and that maybe some more of those voices will come in. And I think that people need to show some leadership around that. All right, okay, thanks very much indeed for giving us some insights here, but we're going to keep you here for a little while longer, because after this we're going to walk to the digital wall and just get a sense of what's been happening on social media. Stay with us for that. Right, so we're I've done a quick walk, teleported myself to this wall here. So we're shifting gears a little bit. We're taking a look at what's been trending on social media. And I guess hashtag Winnie Mandela funeral was top of the agenda.
Yes, Peter, indeed it is. Now, but the five...
But first I'm going to say welcome, Pukule.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
The top 5 hashtags at the moment, specifically on Twitter, are hashtag Winnie Mandela funeral, the Liberty Radio Awards, Naomi Campbell. A lot of people have been applauding her for attending Winnie's funeral and paying tribute to Mama Winnie, because they've been asking questions, where are all these leading role ladies who have played Winnie in her documentaries and movies? And then Orlando Stadium and Julius Malema has been trending as well, obvious reasons, Winnie Mandela again. And after his speech specifically, people even started a challenge after he had called on Umama to say, give us a sign. So those are the top 5 hashtags. But looking into the funeral, a lot of...
So what has been the overall sentiment? If you could start summing it up, if you're looking at the tweets, what are people saying? What are they expressing?
People are talking a lot about the documentary. People are talking about how the Cape Town International Airport should be changed to Winnie Madikizela Mandela International Airport. People are talking about how her role as a leader in South Africa was overlooked, but people are actually applauding her role and saying they're proud of her and what she has done for South Africa, especially the youth. Some have said that South African youth have been longing for a leader like Winnie. Some have said, you know, with their fist up, giving respect to her, and she just didn't get South African recognition, but overall, globally, people have been applauding Mama Winnie.
And the Dukes came out in their numbers, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
And the dress, kind of, again, just finding ways to pay tribute to her.
The Duke was her signature look, so people have been, in the 10 days of appreciating her and honoring her, people have been wearing their black, their Dukes, their beads, their traditional way to honor Mama Winnie.
All right, so Naomi Campbell, why was she big?
She was big because she is an international model that came to the funeral. And people are asking the question, where are all these ladies who have, these actresses who have been playing Winnie Mandela in her movies, her documentaries, why aren't they at the funeral? And they actually said, kudos to Naomi Campbell, yes.
But there's other stories that have been happening, and lest we forget, the Commonwealth Games have been taking place as well, haven't they?
They have, and the ladies have been doing their best to put our flag up high, e.g. Caster Semenya, and she is one of, let me just say, Winnie Mandela came out to support her back in 2009 when the media, actually international media, came against her, questioning her sexuality.
All right, so she's been succeeding.
She's been succeeding.
She's breaking records.
She's breaking records, yes.
And it keeps coming up. But, okay, so what's likely to happen this week for witch hunts, I guess?
I think so. I think the Winnie Mandela is still going to trend. I think the question behind the journalists that were exposed on social media, that is still going to trend, and other things are still going to trend, yes.
All right, okay, so that's a look at some of the things that have been playing out on Twitter and social media. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we continue taking a look at some of the issues that are taking centre stage in the world of the media. Stay with us.
SABCnews.com is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need. With a website that is easy to use on mobile, SABC News prides itself in being the primary source of public service content across multiple platforms. Watch live streams of all the big news events on the SABC News YouTube channel, which is one of the most viewed South African YouTube channels globally. And catch up on the best of SABC television and radio news. Follow breaking news on all of the SABC News social media platforms, interact with SABC News on Facebook, and stay connected on Twitter for the latest headlines and real-time updates by our reporters. SABC News, everywhere.
Right, welcome back. You're watching Media Monitor on this Sunday morning. And so here's a big story that's kind of been there or thereabouts in social media, and people have been reacting one way or another. SABC Radio announced a few changes to its lineup recently, specifically affected as the public broadcaster's national English medium station, SAFM. If the public's response is anything to go by, listeners, well, some of them are not taking the changes very well, leading trade union threats to public anger as well. To talk to us a little bit more about these newly implemented changes is SABC Head of Radio, Nada Wachela. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, change is something that happens, and I suppose in your wisdom you woke up and you thought, we need to change things. Why?
You see, that's the thing. We didn't just wake up and think we need to change things. There's a number of reasons why we had to change things on SAFM particularly, because as you've just said, this is our national radio station with 127 transmitters all over the country. And with that kind of reach, you wouldn't expect that the station would only deliver 200,000 listeners. And so this was a cause for concern, and it's been coming, a long way. And also the station has not been performing in terms of revenue. And so we've had to come up with a turnaround strategy for the radio station. The station is still keeping to its talk radio format. However, we've just changed the scheduling in terms of, what kind of programming do we put where, in the program schedule.
Well, tell us a little bit about the rationale of how you want it to look and what informed that.
All right. First of all, SAFM is licensed as a full-spectrum radio station, and therefore we have to cover drama, education, documentary, sports, everything, like all the other PBS radio stations. But it was a conscious decision by management, I think about 12 years ago, where SABC management then decided to turn it into a talk radio format to kind of serve a particular need that was there in the communities that we serve at that particular time. We still like the talk radio format. However, it's been largely driven by news. It's been driven from the newsroom. And because of that, we have not been able to deliver on our other imperatives like revenue, because we don't want to bother people like yourself, journalists, about money and chasing audiences and all of that. And so we decided to give back the control of SAFM's program schedule to radio programmers, because those are the people that are trained and are paid to do that. And how we want it to look, would like to use our news current affairs programs to drive, audience growth, and hence we've put at 5 o'clock our very first current affairs program, because it's a tried and tested formula that is working on all our other radio stations. For instance, Ukhozi FM, current affairs in the morning, wakes people up, gives them,
So do you think that it was
news.
the format that was the problem, not so much the personalities? Because some people are saying, look, Sakina, we love Tsepi, so
we love all of them.
Why shift them around?
We love all of them.
Yeah.
However, you will also appreciate, Peter, that radio is a personality-driven medium. And if you want a big breakfast show, and every station, works towards having, a big breakfast show, because that's what sets the tone and pace of your radio station. So we needed to implement changes, especially starting with the breakfast show, starting with the morning part of the day. And therefore, we've shifted current affairs to start earlier at 5 in the morning so that it feeds into the breakfast show, and then you grow your audiences like that. And you repeat the pattern at midday. at 12, we have, another current affairs program that also grows audiences into your afternoon drive. So it's all very technical how you place your programs.
Did you get to the bottom of how Sakina's show ended abruptly on that fateful Friday? What happened?
We did get to the bottom of it, and I think it was a matter of, this is my opinion, maybe poor planning, because what transpired was that there was no, or the plan fell through in terms of what was going to happen in that hour, 8 to 9, and therefore she decided to go with the flow and do her own thing, which was not part of the script, and things went south, and that's why the people that were on the floor on that day had to make a decision.
And we had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, Liberty Radio Awards played out yesterday.
Big night for radio.
How did SABC Radio do?
Not as well as we did last year, because we've had years where we've done a clean sweep. However, what was so heartwarming for me last night was, people like Sis Dudu Koza, Lady D of Ukozi FM, Undade Tusa Mutabung, and Wilson Binkosi, being inducted in the Radio Hall of Fame. That was the biggest moment for me. But our other radio stations as well, they did scoop some awards. Musweding FM for drama, RSG, I think, for documentary, Metro took the drive. I'm forgetting 2 others. But yeah, it was a great night.
Now, take a look at some of these comments that people are saying. SAFM, so sad how AM and PM have melted down into uninteresting bootlicking blobs. Listening to SAFM radio now, my goodness, some African designers spending time in redesigning the ZCC church uniform. Sad how money reigns and tries to own what it can. People are not happy, and I suppose that puts you under pressure, because if you don't bring in the revenue now, they're going to say, we told you so.
Well, we weren't bringing it in anyway.
Yeah.
We had to do something. And it's only been a week that this lineup has been launched. People are reacting positively towards Stephen Rotes, for instance. Yes, we've decided to go easy in the afternoon drive on the hard stuff, hard news stuff. But we're working with our colleagues from news. We have access to all these newsrooms across the country. So there is no way that people can say the SABC is moving away from news.
Do you think you could have handled it better in terms of informing people and even some of the presenters about the changes and what it was going to look like?
Peter, we did the best we could, especially internally, because this process didn't just, spring up in April. I joined radio, I came back to radio in December last year, and I found this project already moving. And it had been moving. I was aware of it, even in my previous position, because I was still with the SABC working with some radio stations. So I was aware of what is happening. So it was quite a surprise that, when it came to implementation, there was still resistance, or still people kind of disowning the process. But we're working through that. Yes, I understand that there has been gaps in terms of the communication, but we're working through those things. We do this every couple of years in radio, and we always get mixed reactions, but we deal with it, and it does settle.
All right. Nada Wachela, thank you very much indeed, Head of Radio at SABC. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure.
And certainly wish you the best of luck, because SABC Radio is the people's radio. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and hopefully we're going to try and get to that walk. I want to see Gillian in her running gear. Stay with us. Right, top of the morning to you and welcome back. You're watching Media Monitor. Now, as the Facebook scandal involving personal data leaks grows, it was revealed earlier this week that the personal information of some 60,000 South Africans may have been shared with controversial political data firm Cambridge Analytica. This as the founder and CEO of social media giant faced some tough questions when he testified before the US Congress, which met to address data misuse in the wake of the data harvesting scandal.
Are you willing to change your business model in the interest of protecting individual privacy?
Congresswoman, we have made and are continuing to make changes to reduce the amount of data.
Are you willing to change your business model in the interest of protecting individual privacy?
Congresswoman, I'm not sure what that means.
Well, I'll follow up with you on it. When did Facebook learn that Cambridge Analytica's research project was actually for targeted psychographic political campaign work?
Congresswoman, it might be useful to clarify what actually happened here.
I don't have time for a long answer, though. When did Facebook learn that? And when you learned it, did you contact their CEO immediately? And if not, why not?
Congresswoman, yes. When we learned in 2015 that a Cambridge University researcher associated with the academic institution that built an app that people chose to share.
We know what happened with them, but I'm asking you.
Yes, I'm answering your question.
Right.
Are you actually considering having Facebook users pay for you not to use that information?
People have a control over how their information is used in ads in the product today. So if you want to have an experience where your ads aren't targeted using all the information that we have available, you can turn off third-party information. I think people often ask what the difference is between surveillance and what we do, and I think that the difference is extremely clear, which is that on Facebook, you have control over your information. The content that you share, you put there. You can take it down at any time. The information that we collect, you can choose to have us not collect. You could delete any of it. And of course, you can leave Facebook if you want. I know of no surveillance organization that gives people the option to delete the data that they have or even know what they're collecting.
So that's Mark Zuckerberg, gazillionaire. And after that testification, if there's such a word, after he testified, Facebook share price went up again. So it seems as if he said something that resonated with people. But to further look into the implications of this, we're now joined by digital and innovation editor at ITWeb, Lauren Kate Rawlins. Thanks very much for joining us and welcome to the program. Is this much ado about nothing, or is this a very serious problem that we should be concerned about?
Well, for South Africans, there's only 60,000 people that may have been affected. It's not a huge thing at the moment. The data's quite old. For South Africans, it doesn't really have a huge impact.
Did it really affect the American elections? Because this is, in the end, what we're kind of worried about, is that people can use data and manipulate results of a democratic process.
Well, you see, we don't know how effective it was. We know that it was used in the 2016 elections, but we don't know if it was effective. There are worries that this can be used in the future, but this is already happening on a day-to-day basis. This is how Facebook's model works.
All right, so explain to us what the problem is here, that the founder of Facebook had to testify before Congress. What is the actual problem?
Well, yes, so he had to testify. He almost got like a talking to.
Yeah.
He didn't, there was no fine, there was no... the regulations haven't been put down yet. Okay. So
it's not illegal what happened, it's just perhaps unethical.
No, it is illegal what happened. So what happened was there was a Cambridge University professor who harvested information without people's explicit consent. So they didn't know where the information was going. Once he got all the information, he sold it to Cambridge Analytica, who used it for Brexit and for the 2016 US presidential election.
And the idea is that they know what Peter likes, so let's target him with certain types of information to further push him along a certain direction. Is that the idea?
To change the public opinion of certain things like elections. Facebook already does this. Yeah, gun control.
Okay.
And all these sorts of things, yeah.
All right, so, you know, one of the things, and we'll be focusing on Facebook, but the more I tune into YouTube now, even before I start searching, a whole lot of suggestions come up.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Are they watching me?
Well, definitely. They're taking in, they're following what you like, what you hover on. The timelines work. If you look at something on your Facebook page for more than 3 seconds, they count that. And then they can understand and build a profile about you and then create an algorithm that will give you videos on YouTube or Facebook, what they know you will click on.
But there's a revenue side to this. Every time I watch something, so if they're suggesting things and I watch them, that person who's put that video could be making money. So in other words, I could be having things suggested to me because somebody's paid for them to suggest it to me.
Well, they've paid for YouTube and Facebook to create a profile to give you the advert that you're most likely to want to look at.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I am being abused a little bit.
Yeah, you could look at it like that, yeah.
But can Zuckerberg seem to think that you can protect yourself, you can tick certain things, but I don't know what I don't know.
Well, exactly. So these platforms are quite tricksy. Yeah. So they have these things where it's opt-in by default. So when you've set up your Facebook page, you are automatically sharing your face and your name and your date of birth and your hometown by default. And what the Senate was discussing this week and trying to create more trust within users is to actually bring this opt-in to the beginning of the process. So it's explained to you at the beginning what you are sharing and what you are not. Right now, you have to go into your profile and actually turn this off, and they're hidden all everywhere in the menus. So.
All right. So I suppose with the Zuckerberg drama, more rules will come into play and it will become simpler and simpler for us as users to protect ourselves.
Yes, well, that's what we can hope, yeah. There are ways you can go into Facebook at the moment, but they've split it up. So under privacy in your settings, you can change what you want public and what you want not. But under ads, there you'll find an ad profile of yourself and what Facebook knows about you and what it thinks it knows about you. And there you can untick what you do and what you don't. Because you might have hovered on a badminton video and now you're getting badminton ads, but because you just walked away from your desk. So Facebook thinks this. And then you can go and untick that so you don't, that information is not shared with these companies.
All right. Kate, we're going to have to leave it there, but thanks very much indeed. And I guess the moral of the story is here, just be careful once you're in a digital environment, what you tick, what you agree to, what you sign up for, and where you put your name.
Yeah.
All right, okay, so I'm going to strike back, and in fact what I'm going to start doing on social media is like things that I hate and tick things that I would never look at and see what they do with that information. Stay with us. Right, welcome back. We're starting to wrap things up. We've got Kate Skinner in studio right now, and we've got a couple of minutes literally just to kind of look at the week ahead. But before that, a viewer sent this in. Let's take a quick look at this. And this is a comment that this came through. Kate Skinner, for the record, we believe that Mama Winnie said about Tandeka, Gubule and Anton Harbour and Nombed Matiane, SA Editors Forum, must assist us with the names of the remaining 38 sellouts. Stratcom for... And this is what we were talking about before, isn't it? I mean, you've seen as protecting your own, and Mama Winnie, I think she was misinterpreted personally, but your thoughts very quickly on that, and then we'll talk about what we'll see in the media again.
So I think the issue is, I do think that she was misinterpreted. I mean, I think she was saying that certain journalists were working to promote the the Stratcom agenda, but the issue was, you know, were they doing it did they doing it knowingly or unknowingly? And
instructed specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to say. Also, I mean, the issue again, I think which we must be very careful about is that if we get that list of names, the fact is, do we know that is in fact a list of names that is a genuine list of names? Because what are we doing? We are relying on these old apartheid Stratcom operatives, and how reliable are they?
All right, and in a minute. We know Mum Winnie will be in the papers this week, and you already alluded to what kind of coverage should come through. But what other stories should we be looking for this week, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think, the Commonwealth Games, the end of that, let's see. It seems that we've done really well. It would be great to look at some of those issues. I mean, I also thought it was just very interesting what we were looking at now in terms of the whole international Facebook issues. I thought that is fascinating, given the power of social media. So I think those are some of the things, and of course, as we've said, the kind of final issues around Winnie.
And whether you're going to fly to Winnie Mandela International Airport in Cape Town in the future. Kate Skinner, thanks very much indeed for joining us. And that's where we're going to leave the Media Monitor for this week. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Catch us again at the same time next week at the same place, Channel 404, SABC News. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Bye-bye.
Corruption both in the public and the private sectors needs to be combated.
Where there are clear cases of wrong that has been done, that must commence immediately.
Something is being done about corruption in our country.
Currency, even although it's strengthened dramatically after the ANC's recent elective conference, could conceivably go stronger yet.
He had a soul that would not be for sale.
Stay tuned to Your World for your final news roundup, Monday to Sunday at 21:30.
Did you know the big hole digging started in 1871 and ended on the 14th August 1914? The hole produced 2,722 kgs of diamonds. However, one diamond as huge as 490 carat of stone found in the open prior 1868 gave them the interest to dig. Extracted from 22.5 million tons of soil. Today, the hole sits at a breathtaking 214 meters deep. Kimberley Big Hole attracts tourists from all over the world, taking a vintage tram past the city, then cycling around the Big Hole.